After the end of World War II, the population shifted. The factories that once produced planes began producing cars.
70 Mustang Mach 1, for instance. It's got recessed taillights, an optional 428 Cobra Jet V8 with a shaker, and a sporty new front end. But most of all, the 1970 Mustang's got personality. What makes Mustang number one? Personality. The 1970 Mustang hardtop, for example. It's got an economical 6 to move you, and that sporty look all around you. But most of all, Mustang's got personality. For 1970, number one, there's Mustang hardtop, Mach 1, and the elegant Grande. Ford gives you better ideas. It's the going thing.
Personality. In 1945, 25 million people owned cars, and in 1975, the number tripled to 75 million. With the number of cars increasing, the Senate Congress passed the National Interstate and Defense Highway Act, linking the entire country with roads at least 4 lanes wide. This reduced traveling from the East Coast to the West from 68 days to 9. However, the process of creating these highways was not easy. Very similar to the road systems, the roads required thousands of employees and hours. The difference from its counterpart, the use of dynamite, was heavily relied on. The interstate system was started by President Eisenhower on June 9, 1956.
The national system of interstate and defense highways would eliminate unsafe roads, inefficient routes, traffic jams, and all of the other things that got in the way of speedy, safe, transcontinental travel. The concern with the highway system was the cost of producing them. At this point, many of the car manufacturers, tire companies, and gas stations created a case and was able to convince the state government to use taxpayers' money to improve and construct roads. In most of the cases, the government would split the cost of the roads with the state. A new Federal Aid Highway Act passed in June 1956 allowed $26 million to construct these roads. The act stated that 90% of the cost would be paid by the government. The money came from an increased gasoline tax, now 3 cents a gallon instead of 2, that went into a non-divertible highway trust fund. When the Interstate Highway Act was first passed, most Americans supported it. Soon, however, the unpleasant consequences of all that road building began to show. Most unpleasant of all was the damage the roads were inflicting on the city neighborhoods in their path. They displaced people from their homes, sliced communities in half, and led to abandonment and decay in the city after city. The first victory for the anti-road forces took place in San Francisco, where in 1959 the Board of Supervisors stopped the construction of the double-decker Embargo Freeway along the waterfront. During the 1960s, activists in New York City, Baltimore, Washington, D.C., New Orleans, and other cities managed to prevent road builders from everscading their neighborhoods.
On a scale never before imagined, at a distance from the city never before accepted, Park Forest, Illinois was one of the largest privately built communities in the country, opened in 1948. It was more than 30 miles from jobs and services of downtown Chicago. The car influenced both the physical layout of the development and daily lives. Park Forest was literally built around a family car. The first residence to open was a rental downtown homes, organized around auto courts. With parking areas at the rear of the building, curved streets were designed to slow traffic through the residential neighborhoods. Life without a car was difficult in the sprawling new suburbs. Before Park Forest shopping centers, plazas was ever built, residents had to travel 10 miles for groceries. When completed, the plaza was surrounded by 3 sides by a sea of parking spaces. The family car played a pivotal role in the daily life of American families' lives. Fathers commuted long distances every day, mainly to jobs in downtown Chicago. Many commuters traveled by company-sponsored vans, carpools, and rush-hour-only public transportation in order to leave the car with the family. The car gave women more mobility and more power to structure their own day. Park Forest was a bridge between the old railroad and new automobile suburbs. Many early residents took the train to jobs in Chicago, but by 1960, more than half of Park Forest downtown commuters traveled by car. Park Forest developers tried to convince the Illinois Central to build a spur train into the center of the community, but the railroad argued that commuter services wasn't profitable enough.
However, the Park Forest was not perfect. Park Forest was composed of all white families. Park Forest was never officially segregated. However, the developers gave preference to white World War II veterans with families. The first African American family moved into Park Forest in 1959, more than a decade after the village was founded. Yvonne Robinson, an educator in a nearby suburb, moved to Park Forest with her family in 1963. Only about a half a dozen black families lived in Park Forest at the time, and the Robinson children were the first to integrate their elementary school. Before the Robinsons moved in, the Park Forest Social Action Committee canvassed the neighborhood. This level of community involvement was important to Miss Robinson. Protesters had burned down her brother's house in a nearby suburb the year before. Depression and war had created a post-war housing crisis. To help make decent, affordable housing available, the federal government passed laws that encouraged suburban housing development. Middle and working class families rushed to buy or rent homes in the new developments. Early Park Forest residents found unfinished houses and muddy streets, but that didn't deter the moving vans.
By 1960, Park Forest had nearly 30,000 residents. In the 1950s, as new suburbs prospered and spread across post-war America, cities suffered. Rising car and truck ownership made it easier for businesses and middle and working class white residents to flee to the suburbs, leaving behind growing poor and minority populations and physical crises. Transit systems lost riders and money, and traffic jammed city streets. Chicago's leaders worried that white flight, worsening traffic, and growing ring of slums threatened the future of the Loop, the city's central business and financial district. Soon after World War II, years before the federal government founded the interstate system, city planners dusted off a 1940 superhighway planning document. They began construction of a system of expressways that they hoped would accommodate the car and stem the flow of people and investment out of the central city. In the 1950s, Chicago built expressways that linked suburbs without the center of the city, intended to ease traffic flow. These high-speed corridors instead drove away residents and businesses and tore apart inner-city neighborhoods. The construction of the Congress Expressway involved the demolition of 250 buildings in the Loop alone and displaced thousands of households at a cost of $6.2 million a mile. The cars pouring into Chicago had to park somewhere in the 1950s. The city acquired enough land to build 74 garages that held over 14,000 cars. The number of parking garages grew until 1972. That year, the city passed an ordinance banning new parking garage construction in an effort to discourage people from driving downtown. African Americans on Chicago's south side, Mexicans and other residents from immigrants on the west side, and older immigrant communities on the northwest side all lost homes, neighborhoods, and livelihoods to highway construction. Chicago residents were not able to stop the construction of a new highway until 1972, when the city threatened to tear down more than 30,000 households to build Crosstown Expressway. O'Hare International Airport opened to commercial air traffic in 1955 and modernized and expanded in 1959. It was developed on an old airfield in a quiet community far northwest of Chicago. The city annexed the land and built the Northwest Expressway to the airport in 1960. By 1961, O'Hare was the world's busiest airport, and many businesses had sprouted up around the site. By the end of the 1960s, industrial parks, manufacturing plants, office complexes, parking lots, and hotels dominated the surrounding of the countryside. The jet airliner offered more than an advance in speed. It revolutionized the cost and comfort of flying. Lower maintenance costs meant lower fares. Smooth flight above most turbulence attracted passengers otherwise wary of flying. In 1960, 2 years after the Boeing 707 began flying commercially, air travel accounted for 42% of the U.S. commercial passenger travel. By 1980, it was 84%.
When you're alone and life is making you lonely, you can always go downtown. When you've got worries, all the noise and the hurry seems to help, I know. Downtown, just listen to the music of the traffic in the city. Linger on the sidewalk where the neon signs are pretty. How can you lose? The lights are much brighter there. You can forget all your troubles, forget all your cares. So go downtown. Things will be great when you're downtown. No finer place for sure. Downtown, everything's waiting for you. Don't hang around and let your problems surround you. There are movie shows downtown. Maybe you know some little places to go to where they never close. Downtown, just listen to the rhythm of a gentle bossa nova. You'll be dancing with them too before the night is over. Happy again. The lights are much brighter there. You can forget all your troubles, forget all your cares. So go downtown, where all the lights are bright. Downtown, waiting for you tonight. Downtown, you're gonna be alright now. Downtown, downtown.
Okay. First, can you introduce yourself?
My name is Alicia P. Cubillos.
Okay. How long have you lived in El Paso for?
All my life, 71 years.
Okay. Where did you grow up?
Where did I grow up?
Yes.
Like what section of town or what city?
No, what section of town did you grow up in?
I guess I could say it's the second ward.
Could you elaborate on that?
What do you mean? What do you mean? Well, it was the second ward, the south part of El Paso.
So
It
when
was close to the river, close to the bridge, close to the border of Juarez and El Paso.
okay, so like think about El Paso now. Where you grew up, where would that be now in El Paso?
In Juarez.
In Juarez? Okay.
Yeah, because they gave all that. It was a chamizal, and they returned. They bought out our house, and then they gave all that land back to Mexico because supposedly the river had moved.
Okay, so like the boundary lines had moved?
It's a what?
The boundary lines had moved?
Yes.
Okay.
The river had moved, so they said that that's supposed to be Mexico property, and I think it was Kennedy that gave it back to Mexico.
Okay. So, after you left what is now Juarez, where did you live after that?
Well, where I lived I lived in El Paso, but then we moved to 5509 Gary Owen, which is like, I guess now it's Central.
Where Ama
Grandma
lives?
lives.
Okay.
Yes.
How have you seen El Paso change from when you were growing up to now?
What I think, I don't know. The thing is that there are more people from Mexico now here, I think, in El Paso. I see it a lot. There's a lot of immigrant and more people than when we were. I guess everybody was like born and raised here. Even our just not my parents were, just our grandparents, which would be your great grandparents. But now all the children, like I see, they're just coming. A lot of people are coming from Mexico or from somewhere else.
Like architecture-wise, road-wise?
I think it's grown well. El Paso has grown a lot. I don't even know East El Paso. It's very far east. I don't know that. It's true. It's advanced a lot.
Was I-10 around when you were growing up?
Was I what? I didn't hear.
Was I-10 around when you were growing up?
No.
No?
It was after I got married that they made the freeway.
What year did you get married?
I don't even know, 1967.
1967? Okay.
Uh-huh.
So after 67 is when they started building I-10?
Uh-huh. Yes.
She just needs a freeway. What should we ask?
I think you were like staring out the window or something, or you were like kind of like looking to the wall.
We did I-10. We did everything else.
What did you guys how has downtown changed from?
Downtown was very popular. Everybody went to downtown shopping, but now nobody goes to downtown. You go shopping to the malls now. There were no malls.
Mhm.
They did Cielo Vista after we moved there to Chelsea. Then Cielo Vista and Bassett were built. Before that, you went shopping to downtown to buy your stuff, everything.
And then you grew up in the Segunda Barrio, right?
Yes.
Where was that? Like when you were
What
a
do you
kid?
mean? I can't hear you, Julie. It's in the cell. What did you say?
Where was the Segunda Barrio when like? How would you translate it to where it is now?
What do you mean? I can't hear you. What's the difference of when I grew up and now?
Yes.
Well, I don't know how it is now, but when we were, it was a nice neighborhood where we lived. It was very nice. There were all houses, and it was just, everybody was, you knew your neighbors. You went outside to play. There was nothing. It was just all houses. We lived in a different section. Now it's all, and where the tenements were and everything that was far from where we lived.
Mm-hmm.
But I And the segundo is very different. I don't know. They say, isn't it the ghetto? Then don't you say it's the ghetto?
I don't say it's the ghetto, but other people do.
People say, but it's not. I don't know. When we lived there, we didn't see any crimes or anything. I don't know.
Okay. Those two guys. Do you like El Paso more now or back when you were a kid?
Background with a kid, because I don't like to drive in the freeway. I don't like all this traffic. You know what, because I'm old-fashioned, you see. I don't like all that stuff. It's too advanced for me.
The freeway's too advanced?
The freeway, I don't drive the freeway at all because I'm scared. I'm afraid of the freeway.
Okay, we're good? Alright, thank you, Grandma.
Okay, I'll see you. Bye.
Bye.
When you're alone and life is making you lonely, you can always go downtown. When you've got worries, all the noise and the hurry seems to help, I know. Downtown, just listen to the music of the traffic in the city. Linger on the sidewalk where the neon signs are pretty. How can you lose? The lights are much brighter there. You can forget all your troubles, forget all your cares. So go downtown. Things will be great when you're downtown. No finer place for sure. Downtown, everything's waiting for you. Don't hang around and let your problems surround you. There are movie shows downtown. Maybe you know some little places to go to where they never close. Downtown, just listen to the rhythm of a gentle bossa nova. You'll be dancing with them too before the night is over. Happy again. The lights are much brighter there. You can forget all your troubles, forget all your cares. So go